Hey everyone. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce the SoMiCo knife project and talk to you about our first knife that's just gone into production and is now available for purchase. So just a little bit about SoMiCo first. This was a concept I came up with a few months ago because I was talking to a lot of people that were really interested and enthusiastic and encouraging in saying I should be looking at tool design, knife design and things like that and putting some things out on the market. And I was very interested in that idea. But then the thought crossed my mind, I've got some exceptional friends that are really into edge tools, but for very different backgrounds and reasons than I am. And I kind of got fascinated with this concept of what, when you start to melt those minds together, actually gets produced. So, in collaboration with Maya Soderholm and Rory Miller, basically SoMiCo was born. And put it simply, SoMiCo is just the first two letters of each of our surnames. So Soderholm, Miller and Cowan. That was how creative the name was. Obviously, both the other collaborators have a huge background in edge tool use, and we all appreciate and use these tools and carry these tools every day, but like I say, for vastly different backgrounds, from vastly different backgrounds and for vastly different reasons. Now, being aware that, if we take the principle that camel is a horse that was designed by a committee, it was important for us going forward in this project to see how the collaboration was going to work. Because if all three of us just kind of pulled the ideas, we'd just end up with kind of random knife designs that wouldn't sort of achieve anything. It would just be too spurious or divergent. So what we decided is that we would produce a range of edge tools with one person in a lead for each tool, and then a second, and then a third sort of backing. So if we take the first knife, which I'll show you in just a second, the Vaari, Maya Soderholm was actually the lead designer on this knife. And then Rory was kind of the second largest contributor, and I basically looked at sort of the 80-90% done designs from Maya and Rory, and then just put in some tweaks and some thoughts on the wilderness survival and everyday carry side of things. So I was the kind of least contributor, but the thoughts were in there. On the next knife, most likely I'll be the lead, and so you'll see far more of like the wilderness influence, etc, etc. So just to understand how the concept sort of worked and delivered, especially from the design to delivery process. So without further ado, what I want to do is just show you briefly the Vaari. Now I am going to be doing much longer and actual field testing videos on this knife, where I'll be taking out and about and showing you in use during tasks, and you'll see a link below to those different videos. That we're not going to post them all up on the website, we'll just hold that on the YouTube channel. So just very, very briefly then, here it is. This is the SoMiCo Vaari. And Vaari is a Finnish word which means grandfather, and Maya's, as the lead designer, felt that her grandfather was very, very influential to her respect and sort of thoughts on knives, so she wanted to dedicate this knife to him. We're very, very proud to be able to do that. So just showing, and hopefully with this light background you can kind of see some of the features. Obviously what we've got here is a very, very Filipino influenced design, which is no big surprise, but it's a nice sort of balance between Filipino and frontiersman, because obviously that's the kind of Rory voice coming through. But definitely as I hold and move this knife, you feel a lot of Maya's personality in here. So Filipino to frontiersman was the sort of big part, and then like I say, I'm coming in on the kind of the wilderness and emergency responder type stuff. So what have we actually got? The knife is 13 inches overall in length, that's 33.5 centimeters, and if you go to the relevant page on the website you'll get all of the other technical specifications, so I'm not going to repeat that here. So what we've got is this deeply curved sharp tip blade with a sabre grind on it, and then obviously this angled handguard, and this particular version is looking at the micarta hand scales, which are actually removable, okay? And then obviously we've got the beak towards the rear of the handle here. Now I'm not going to repeat what Maya's saying in her sort of design brief on her video just over to the side, so let me just tell you about the wilderness specific parts to this. With a lot of the actual grind work, these edges were chamfered because obviously this is a very dynamic knife and it wants to move. You feel that in the hand. It's a hungry knife. It wants to move, it wants to cut. And so what we didn't want is really kind of burrs or edges on the design that you're going to be sort of snagging yourself up. But what we did keep was a 90-degree grind in this top 2/3 of the blade that actually functions perfectly well for fire steel striking, things like that. And back in the pommel here, the lanyard holes. Now all of us acknowledge and appreciate in all of our gear that basically we're massively into aftermarket modification. In fact, I can't think of really any gear I own that I didn't do some aftermarket modification. So we're pretty proud of this design. This is as complete a knife as we wanted to put out for this version, but absolutely we wanted to inspire and encourage other people to say, once you've got it in the hand, if you want to start tinkering with this, guys, that's totally cool. Hence the detachable hand scales, hence some of the features on here. So I can totally see me putting in this lanyard hole here, the kind of lofty Wiseman lanyard loop, especially because it's a big knife, and because of this additional part going back in the handle, the kind of power assist we're calling it, which was Rory's influence on the design, you can drop your hand back here and really start to get a very strong, powerful slicing action, which, if you've seen Lofty Wiseman's tool design, is a big part of the features for his influences from the jungles of Borneo, but then he has a lanyard for security on that. So these are the features that we've been putting in that, you know, have functionality from our viewpoint, but give you the modifications from your viewpoint that, you know, you possibly want to sort of tinker with. When I first saw the design, for me, this in sort of wilderness terms was looking at dressing of mid to large game, and I'm hopefully going to be processing a deer on one of the other videos, and you can see how that goes. So what we actually did was, originally the blade was sort of sharpened to here, and we had a sort of neutral section going to handguard. We actually just extended the grind, if you can see there, on the blade to create this great sort of hook system. So when I'm on the reverse cut and I'm dressing animal, I've got this real great profile to work with, you know, from an exceptionally penetrating tip all the way through to a good working edge, and the ability to kind of lift the blade away from the body and the internal organs if I'm sort of dressing that way. So think sort of almost in gut hook terms type thing, but not quite so as aggressive as an actual gut hook, sorry. So that briefly is some of the design features that I kind of brought in at the late stage. And like I said, watch my and Rory's videos and they'll tell you a lot more about the design concept and their thoughts and influences on the knife. And as I said before, just to repeat, check out the links below for the actual field testing of the knife out here in northern Scandinavia, and you'll see me put this through its paces. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed the knife. This project's been fantastic to work on. And as I say, this is the first tool we're producing. There's many more to come with a whole lot of fun things to share with you. So thanks for taking the time to watch. Please give us any feedback. Email us on our website address. Let us know what you think about the design. And hopefully you'll also order one and get one of these in your hand and tell us how you think it is.